Hey, and welcome again to another episode of Nutanix Weekly, one of the many podcasts here at XenTegra. Content with context is what we like to call them, and we're happy to have you back on listening with us for another episode. Um, I'm Phil Sellers. I am the practice manager for Modern Data Center here at XenTegra, and I'm joined with some awesome guests, including none other than our Chief Enthusiasm Officer, Andy Whiteside. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Philip. Glad to be on for an episode here.
I know, long time. For a long time, you were the primary host for this podcast, and you handed over the reins to me not long ago. And it's good to have you back to join us in this afternoon.
I'll try to contribute where I can.
We've also got Jirah Cox. Jirah is Chief Potentate from Nutanix. I don't know what title I should give you. I always joke about the title, right?
I've been called the Grand Poobah of the East men's bathroom. Working on the West.
Working on the West, yeah.
Got to aspire to something.
Happy to have you here on the podcast. We're also joined by Ben Rogers, Enterprise SE here in the Carolinas. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, man. Holiday week, so today and tomorrow will be kind of busy, but hopefully Wednesday the plane will start to land. Enjoy some family on Thursday and Friday. So I'm in all good spirits this week.
That's right, yeah. And it is the holiday week, so wherever you're at and listening, especially if you're here in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. And we hope that you spend some time with family and enjoy some turkey or some tofurkey if you're so inclined.
Phil, are you a light turkey, light tofu, or dark tofu kind of guy?
I am a full-fledged turkey guy, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, I will stick to
The animal protein based animal protein.
the animal protein. That's it. Yes, 100%. Um, yeah, on behalf of everybody, thanks for listening. As always, we've got a blog post up. This past week, Andy and I were both out at Microsoft Ignite in Chicago. And so we had a lot of chance to interact with customers. We brought about 30 customers. It's one of the value adds we try to put back into the ecosystem is taking our customers with us to industry events. And so we had a bunch of people that we talked with, hosted dinner for at Microsoft Ignite. And as luck would have it, one of our great partners, Nutanix, was also on site at Microsoft Ignite. And you guys were talking about AI, databases, and all sorts of other things. And so we've got a blog post today called Elevating Hybrid Cloud for AI, Databases, and General Purpose Workloads at Microsoft Ignite. We want to talk about all the different things that we were unpacking at the event and dig into those in a little more detail. It's good to see Nutanix out in the marketplace, not only at their own events, but at bigger industry conferences like Ignite. First time back post-COVID in person. It's been virtual for a few years. Had about 10,000 people, I heard. It seemed busy. Andy, I mean, kind of what was your impression just of the week in general?
All things Microsoft partners, which includes partners like us, includes partners like Nutanix. The entire ecosystem, like the whole ecosystem was there. A lot of people that we haven't been around in a long time. Where it was good to be back around. I know the pandemic's been over for a little while, but this was the first conference where it felt like all of the vendors and people that we've worked around for all these years were there and active, and everybody was front and center. Of course, a lot of talk around AI and Copilot, almost to exhaustion, but I think it's so real that we have to be talking about it.
I agree. Copilot was a big letter, and I don't just mean the giant letters you could stand in front of and take photos in front of on the show floor, but we saw Copilot everywhere. The logo, I mean, it was pervasive. The thing I heard back was how much it's improving, how fast it's improving and getting better at helping people do things. And so there's a lot of different places you can plug it in. And so that was fun to hear about use cases. How are people tangibly getting benefits from that? And since we're talking about Copilot, it makes sense for us to start off with the first topic, which is AI. And as the blog post said, the workload everyone's talking about, just like at Ignite. Jirah, do you want to kind of lead us off? What's the first big news that you guys were sharing at Microsoft Ignite?
Yeah. So, and then for all of our listeners, right, you can recap this on this blog post, which serves for us as an Ignite recap blog post for Nutanix, right, around what do we cover. So you'll find that on our blog for elevating hybrid cloud. The first one, of course, yeah, definitely is AI and helps our customers. First off, I don't want to bury the lead, the big announcement. Our product, Nutanix Enterprise AI, usable, of course, in Azure, right? So now we can offer you that sort of command and control layer to govern your AI deployments on-prem, but also in Azure as well. So one consistent, identical look and feel for provisioning, for entitling, for operating the LLMs, the GPTs that you want to use to power your business now really truly anywhere, right? Within your four walls, within Azure or both. That has a lot of benefits, right? Because the way that I can then do inference in the cloud, inference at the edge, inference in my data center with my own private data. There was another blog post I saw recently that talked about the larger and more regulated a customer is, the more they want to probably use AI in a private fashion, right? Which doesn't mean their four-wall data center. It just can mean anywhere that is considered within their cloud platform, right? Which part of what we do in Nutanix is help your cloud go anywhere, run anything, run anywhere, including your cloud can contain public cloud, right? You can have availability zones in your cloud that are public cloud. So that ability to say, I can now do AI one way across all of this, but I own all of my data. I control all of the access to it. It's all mine. Massive shot in the arm for privacy and really even data sovereignty, right? Thinking back a couple of weeks, actually, Phil, to the blog post we covered about Nutanix Unified Storage for AI training. Remember, we were in that two ways, one in our data centers, one on NC2 in public cloud, right? So that ability to host data with full governance, with full sovereignty and privacy over that, but now give that to maybe GPUs that I want to rent in the cloud, lets that Nutanix AI fabric really do very powerful things for me.
Well, the interesting thing is the week after we did that podcast talking about it, I was out with other Nutanix technology champions at the San Jose headquarters. We did a deep dive and they were super, super stoked over this performance benchmark we talked about. So if you haven't heard that episode, definitely click back a few and listen to the ML Perf podcast episode. It's really great stuff. That also gave me the ability to preview what we're talking about here, the Enterprise AI. So Nutanix Enterprise AI, or NAI for short, is the next iteration of GPT in a box. It's the productized version of AI that's consumable for everyone. And that's my elevator pitch for it, right? Is no matter where you run this, it makes AI, which is incredibly complicated, accessible. You get a management plane where infrastructure folks can have a UI and you can go in and you can add your different large language models. You can expose those endpoints. You can train it. You can kind of control everything in the life cycle of an AI large language model in one place. And so I haven't seen that from anybody else. You've got vendor partners like Hugging Face and stuff like that are part of this, but nobody's thought about it from an end-to-end perspective until I saw this.
I like the way you put that. I'll plant a little flag here. We'll come back to it around making the difficult more accessible, right? And that is 100% a great way to marketing might steal that, by the way. Just heads up, Phil. Because that is really what it does, right? Is it makes things that are very complicated and nebulous very, very accessible. Like click, next, done. Okay, now your AI is in production. What did you want it to do again? Let's go start.
Right. So what's really cool about it for me, being out on the sales and seeing how customers are absorbing this, is the simplicity of it. Also, the ability to stand this up fast. So day one's really quick, but day two, day three, day four, the operations piece of it and the maintenance piece of it. We're also empowering, existing Nutanix engineers to AI now. And, we're not really changing the game on them. If they know Nutanix and they understand how Nutanix is, from a bread and butter standpoint, they can walk in AI very easily. And so that's been another win for us, is for existing customers. They now have and they have had the platform that they're now going to run their artificial intelligence on. And then the second thing of this is really cool to me is, AI has been kind of thought of as a cloud thing, and we've quickly learned that security is making that where people are wanting to pull that back on prem. Well, this just gives the best of both worlds. Companies need to run AI on prem, specifically in manufacturing and healthcare. It's got to be next to the workload, but they also need to be able to have these engines running in cloud where they can disperse them and scale them at scale very easily. And so again, we're bridging that gap between these two environments.
Yeah, and it's not always just private data. It's talked about use cases, right? We're delving into more and more. How do we make this beneficial for folks? You're a support organization, right? You have tons and tons of cases and notes and things like that. You also have knowledge base articles and things. You turned it loose on your own data, and that's helpful to your support folks to surface that information. We're seeing that applied to other organizations and their knowledge bases. Organizations that are based around research, they're private research repositories. I think we're a far cry from days of it solving health conditions for us, because there's a lot of other implications to malpractice and other things like that. But even in the healthcare space, you could put it at maybe billing or coding problems in your billing system. And, there's all sorts of other things that you can ask it and start to draw out conclusions or information and point to information. So, again, having it close to those workloads is a huge benefit.
So, Philip, I'm the layman at this point in this conversation with you guys, but this seems like the workload of all workloads that Nutanix was built to solve for.
I think so, because again, our point has been for a long time, right? Nutanix is great for many workloads. And in a lot of ways, it's great for consolidating all of these different types of workloads into a standardized way of operating. And so this is another great example of bringing that all together and putting a bow on top.
Totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's a workload powered by data that requires great speed, that needs some general hardware, right, for running containers, needs some specific discrete hardware for like GPUs for inferring. And for the most part, for most companies, you don't build it once. You want to be able to rebuild it 10 times a week, 10 times a day, right? You need that automation, that CI/CD framework around it for saying, oh, there's a new model of LLM, blah, 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 that runs my application. Let's put it in a dev environment, put it in a test environment, put it in prod environment, and roll it through that whole life cycle, fully automatable. And go back to what we talked about, Phil, with that NUS for inference episode. I think I said, like, none of us would use ChatGPT if it took 3 minutes to answer a question, right? Like, speed matters, right?
Absolutely.
So there really is no such thing as too fast when it comes to that. When we're like having a model just ransack terabytes of data, the faster the better to get better, more high quality answers.
It's amazing how we I don't know how our expectations change. For whatever reason, I just used Copilot to look at my emails from the day. That part changed my world last week. Not because they taught me anything. They just got me thinking outside the box on what I could use them for. One of which was, hey, summarize my calendar for the day. Like when I get out of bed, or like at the end of the day, hey, what was my email today? What was the important stuff? And I still need to look at it, but it really did a good job of giving me a synopsis of that. I did a minute ago and it took 5 seconds, and I literally was like, what in the world is wrong with this thing? It's taking forever.
Yeah.
Andy, that's funny because I'm going to age myself here. Do y'all remember Clippy in the Microsoft Office?
Oh, yeah.
I listened to a podcast yesterday. Mark Benioff, the Salesforce CEO founder, was talking about Copilot from Microsoft is just another Clippy. And I'm like, no, dude, it's more valuable than that.
So my boss at the time, who was a visionary, he said, Ben, can you imagine when you get up and you look in the mirror, Clippy comes up in the corner and goes, hey, this is what you got going on today. This is what's important. This is what you need to pay attention to. When you said you had it recap your calendar, I can just see the little Clippy coming up going, hey, Andy, it's bedtime. Here's what's important for you today. Here's what's going to be important for you tomorrow. So that's how I kind of see AI really getting into our lifestyle, where it is truly a digital assistant and will remind you and bug you and let you know that these are the things that you need to be paying attention to in your daily life.
Yeah.
Well,
Clippy sees Ben reach for the comb and goes, "Oh, it's a customer meeting day, is it?"
If it could get me into the right T-shirt for the right vendor for the right
Yeah,
day, that would
right.
help too, right? So
Oh, totally. I can walk in my closet and go like internal calls or customer calls today.
right.
Pick the polo shirt.
That's right. That's right.
But I mean, this is the ultimate of assistive technology, right? We have a lot of things built into our modern operating systems, our phones, to help with accessibility. But this is assistance. This is true digital assistance at its core. And AI comes in all different places, but it really is around making us more productive. And I'm weird the way I said that, more productive at the end of the day.
But there is a back end platform that this AI engine has to run on, and
Mhm.
that's where Nutanix has hit the nail on the head at being able to provide that platform, and in a lot of cases with existing customers with things they have today. And so that's what I'm excited about is this AI thing. The front end of it's cool, but man, how you deliver that as a platform is even cooler to me sometimes.
Well, let's think about that. I mean, it's a great call out too, Ben. Like, what is the front end for this? In a lot of places, it may be somewhere you already interact in your organization. Maybe it's in Microsoft Teams, maybe it's in Slack. That may ultimately be the front end talking to an API that's hosted back in the Nutanix. We may not be talking about going to a chat GPT like web interface. We may be using this in our daily productivity tools. I think that's even more powerful when you can bring something like this to the day to day of what someone's already consuming.
Man, we have a customer that is re-engineering their production floors, and they've actually gone and looked at the footprint of their production devices, and they're able in this software to like move the whole floor around. So before they even move a lick of equipment, they've got the square footage of the building, all the components in that building, and they're actually using an AI model to see where is it most efficient to put this stuff in this line building. So, man, it's happening today, dude. It's cool stuff, really cool stuff. I've heard AI be considered to what electricity has done for the human man, human being, that this is the next, big wave of technology that face. And the things I've seen, man, I'm not a doubter at this point.
I guess ultimately it's going to be a time will tell sort of story. Yeah, there is more though that we have from Nutanix or from Microsoft Ignite, and so I don't want to shortchange the other two big announcements that we were talking about. Next up is databases, and I love this topic because NDB I think doesn't get nearly enough spotlight. So I love that we're talking more and more about Nutanix database. Um, for a lot of people listening, Nutanix database, even though we've talked about it before, may still seem a little weird. It's not a core infrastructure. It's not like VMware. We're talking about databases. We're talking about middleware, places where data resides. And so I get the feeling that a lot of people find it odd that Nutanix is playing in the data space. But Jirah, why is that?
It's because we're a cloud platform and cloud platforms have advanced services, right? Like it shouldn't just be a matter of humans go build VMs and then other humans put database engines on those manually forever, right? Faster time to value, more automation services is the value of cloud, right? Or of any kind of mature cloud platform, including ours. So NDB, which is our Nutanix database service, in its core, right, helps our platform owners to create and vent. Sorry, power outage over here, but UPS is going strong. Helps our platform owners to offer their customers, right, database as a service anywhere that they want to operate. And with NDB, my usual high level summary, right, is like helps you provision faster, protect those databases faster, patch those databases faster, and recover whenever you need to recover from like a human oopsie or from a kind of a data loss event or malware or anything, right? So all the kind of things that are, like I said, I'd call back to more complex operations that we make more accessible, right? I can click a button and patch my database without being an expert in doing that because I can just have my database follow my organization's guidelines and blueprints and recipes for, hey, we're moving to this version of SQL in this patch release. Click here to have your database align with that declarative standard, right? And it's just easier for me as now maybe an app owner to get in line with that, right? Without needing to go bug a DBA for something like patching, right? So the cool part here now is that NDB, our database service, can now provision onto NC2 and Azure. So when you have your hybrid cloud stretching into Azure powered by Nutanix, that now also can be a super valid deployment target for NDB. And can also attach to Flow Virtual Networking. So the same way I can stretch networks now from on-prem. I led a boot camp for this last week. We took customers, and in about 90 minutes, we went from on-prem static IP address to moving those VMs across to another cluster that didn't have that same VLAN available to it. Static IP just worked. So like we could move your VMs today if you wanted to into cloud, get you there faster, but now also not lose that governance model with NDB.
Well, two things that I love about NDB as a platform really come in play when we're talking about app dev combined with NDB, and it's copy data. So you can order up things through the API or through a user interface. If you're an app developer and you need a copy of a database, well, now that's at fingertips. It's no tickets. It's no waiting. It's near instantaneous because you're tapping into all the goodness of the underlying storage subsystem, right? All the
AOS, baby.
AOS for the win.
Yep.
And then the other thing is being able to then take that and extend that into automation. So app dev platforms, pipelines, automated testing, data has to be a part of the total application landscape. Now, when you're testing those things out and doing things, you can do that automatically with the pipeline integrations against NDB. So I love to call those things out because I came from a large app dev before joining XenTegra. And so data is a tough layer to handle. Ben, I know you get really excited talking to customers about NDB. What sorts of things resonate most with them?
Well, so the one thing I would like to go to before I answer that is, man, I think the way Jirah described NDB was very eloquent. I'm a little more, core, and our management of data is really kind of where NDB bubbled out of. We understand the zeros and ones. So you're mentioning of, test dev, app deployment, being able to snapshot the database real quickly and then anonymize it. All of those things are really what bring that to the table, but they all come down to AOS and our ability to manage the zeros and ones and where the zeros and ones need to reside and where they need to be. And so that's where I see customers getting excited in two things. And I'll go back to, our NKP product. The reason that the NKP people love us is that we brought a storage platform that they can now leverage. And that's where customers are really digging NDB, is that they now can leverage the same goodness they get with AOS, but now they can do that in a database sense. And the ability to patch the databases, the ability to look across your SQL landscape and go, okay, I've got multiple versions of SQL out there. I need to make sure they're all patched to the level so that I can come back to a compliance standpoint and feedback to my company that we're compliant for security reasons, yada, yada, yada. So again, man, understanding where the zeros and ones are, being able to deliver those zeros and ones in the way our customers need, and then being able to manage that is really, I think, what the power of the database engine is for us, NDB.
Well, and we're in the business of helping customers get where they want to go faster, right? So when, your stuff is, call it, all in one place, all within your four walls today, but you want to get to cloud as fast as reasonably possible, this helps you get those databases there way faster, right? Like I can now take those databases running on Nutanix, take a snapshot, make that instantly available over in Azure, or even use both, right? I can have one data center that's for test dev, one that's for production. Maybe I do production in the cloud, test dev on-prem. Either of these are totally valid in my data landscape now, stretches wherever I go.
Yeah. And to me, when I think about the Nutanix platform, LCM in particular comes out, lifecycle management, when Nutanix is in control, you're getting the best practices. You get the correct order of operation. You're making it accessible, back to that flag we planted earlier in the podcast. You're making difficult things accessible. And I think NDB is another one of those. Now with a generalist team, not a team of highly skilled expert database administrators, you're able to get outcomes where their best practices, they're going to pass audits, things like that in addition. How accurate am I on that?
Totally. Totally. I mean, not just, I mean, we can keep it kind of SQL themed because this is the Ignite recap, but think about how many customers run 90% SQL, but a little bit of other things, right? Some
Mhm.
Postgres or some Mongo or some Oracle. And so that standardization of like, look, the habit is go to NDB, click the patch button, and know that it's going to do what you need to do in the back end, whether it's SQL single instance or AG or FC or the Postgres or the Maria or the Oracle or whatever. Like my team's in the habit of I go to the dashboard and click patch, right? Like that's pretty high value of like abstraction, not having to go like crack open the manual. And how do I do this one again? Just because
Yeah.
it's a one-off, I get that simplicity of I do everything quote the same way because I do it all through NDB. Or recover the same, or patch the same, or replicate the same, because I can just move this data around wherever I choose to. So yeah, I think it's a pretty apt analogy to kind of compare it to LCM of like let it do the right thing for you the same way every time.
Yeah. Andy, you say you're the novice in the room today, but as we're talking about NDB, I mean, like you've been around databases from the very early days. Every single Citrix
Ouch.
application
Sorry, Andy.
installation,
Didn't let me do that
VMware
to you.
installation. We've had databases as a persistent part of our world, right? Making that easier. I mean, how much does that sound like a
Well,
amazing thing?
if you'd have told me before this AI thing happened, what's the best workload for this, extensible in the cloud, on-prem, in a partner's data center, this thing that could go anywhere you wanted it to, aka hyperconverge, the thing that Nutanix, created for all of us. I would have told you that a database is the
Mhm.
other workload that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And that's coming from the VDI guy that's like, hey, if you run VDI and you don't run it on a hyperconverged solution like Nutanix, well, you're totally missing the mark. Database, once that became a reality in the Nutanix world, is even a better workload.
Yeah,
I was in a briefing last week and learned that something like 90% of all Nutanix customers actually run databases on our platform. It actually probably is eclipsing VDI as our most deployed workload.
and I can believe that. I mean, data rules the world, right? I mean, everyone has this need, and we go there to prove out what's a high performant platform. We have tons and tons of tests around it, and it's an easy way to prove out that you've got the real chops, you got the real deal for infrastructure. It's a great call out. But that's not all that we have. We also have some more NC2 news, and so we'll keep going, close out the blog post from Microsoft Ignite, but continuing innovation around NC2. Jirah, I'm going to throw it to you again.
Sure, dude. So some good quality of life improvements here for NC2 on Azure, which is how we can get bare metal nodes out of the Azure cloud, use them to build a Nutanix cluster to run our customers' workloads. It runs just like any other Nutanix cluster, either in a service provider environment like XenTegra or in your own data center behind your own firewall. You can now run Nutanix, of course, and you've been able to for years, run it in the Azure environment. Now with an enhancement to be able to support user-defined routing. So now like even more of those kind of customizable, I need this traffic to go a certain kind of way. So custom routing makes it more useful for virtual appliances as well when I want certain things to get hairpinned or certain kinds of inspection to occur on that traffic. And then kind of the usual what's new with NC2, now I can run it more places, right? So enhancing availability in UAE and also India Central as well. What's cool about NC2, right, is when you run Nutanix on-prem, you basically buy servers, you buy licenses, you deploy it all. In NC2, you actually can blend some of that. Maybe I own a pilot light cluster. I do a multi-year commit and use part of my Mac and all that good stuff for building that environment and using it against my traditional committed funds. Maybe when I want to have want is the wrong word. When I have a declared disaster for DR, I can get additional nodes in more of a pay-as-you-go by the hour model, right? So I get to rent part of my DR environment only when I need to and go back to minimally viable after the disaster is over. So I just have some replication targets set up there as well. So some really good flexibility there.
Yeah, and I will add, I mean, that NC2 is a great place to run these workloads. And it's not the only place. There's also service providers like XenTegra. Got to throw a plug in there too, right? We offer very similar things, and it gives me a good opportunity to kind of share and brag on the team. We had an unplanned outage, like you said, not something that you ever really want, but it came in as an email, and email request came in, and I saw the email, and it says, "This is not a test." And so it's bad when the customer's coming to you going, "This is not a test. This is not a drill." And in 20 minutes, we had everything failed over and their users logging back into Citrix. The technology is extremely powerful. Being able to do that and map out and test full DR recovery, whether that's NC2 or managed service provider like us, the underlying Nutanix provides us with an incredible platform to orchestrate that and to have a successful outcome. And so, these are great use cases, again, where you don't necessarily have to make that capital investment in a second location.
I mean, it's to call back, it's that third area of helping people get a complex outcome done more simply and faster. I almost said fastly. I'm going to put that out there because it's like, I want to use cloud for DR. I want to move my production to cloud faster. And then we're like, let's go, right? Like we can move your VMs today if you want to. We can help you use cloud as a DR target, which is one of the most common desires I see customers starting with for like, what I want to do with cloud. Let's use it as a DR target, get rid of that second data center, move that into a cloud environment. And we're here for it, right? We help make that happen more fastly. I'll own that, and more simply as well.
We also see more customers leveraging NC2 for robo. So, I mean, I'm working with a customer in Asia that they're looking at moving their remote sites that are in the Asia Pac into NC2 clusters in Azure because we're building out more in that environment. And it makes sense. And, they're reducing their real estate. They're going to more of a subscription type model, which is where the company obviously want to go. And we're able to deliver next to where the workloads are and their users are. So that's all good wins for the customer and for Nutanix and for Azure.
Well, having past experience offshoring, it may be a very viable use case where you will never have hands in Asia Pac. You will never have people on the ground, but you have constituents, consultants, third-party contractors you're delivering services to. You need to be in their region. It is an extremely valid cloud use case to extend your geography, let someone else handle everything below that NC2 layer, and then you handle the things that matter on top, where you can arguably provide more distinguished value to your company.
I think I've said it at some point on the podcast, right? Like in my opinion, running Nutanix on a hardware as a service platform really like completes the initial vision of Nutanix, right? We already assume that hardware in a long enough time frame is going to fail. We don't tightly couple to any one hardware node. We can fail forward. We can rebuild. We do software-defined self-healing in place. So when I can get a new node as a service, right? I don't care about that failed DIMM, that failed power supply, that downed motherboard. I give that node back to the cloud provider. Now it's their problem. I get a new healthy one, and that's now part of my cluster, and I'm back to normal, right? I don't go get a new tire. A new tire just appears for me. I put it on the car and keep on driving. The analogy breaks down, sorry. But same thing with patching, right? I don't do BIOS updates in the cloud, right? I go request a new pre-patched node from the cloud provider that already has their new recipe for hardware success pre-patched, add that to my cluster and inject an older one that I don't need to go patch. It's not mine anymore. So it's really a really cool paradigm in a way that, owning Nutanix on-prem, running Nutanix as a service provider doesn't quite get me as abstracted from it's just hardware as a service.
So I'm gonna give a call out to my boss here, Tom Powell. He drills into our heads that we're a software company. We're not a hardware company. And sometimes the SEs look back at him and go, yeah, we're a software company that's dependent upon hardware. With the NC2 story, he is absolutely correct. This is us at software at its finest, with infrastructure hardware being provided to it that we really might have a knowledge of or might not have a knowledge of. But again, to his point, and if he's listening to this, I hope he has a grin. This does define Nutanix as truly a software company.
Yeah, well, and you're breaking that dependency, right? Everything else we've talked about lives directly on the Nutanix platform, but there are lots of things you guys are working on. Files now can run natively in cloud. You get all the same goodness. So you're starting to see a paradigm shift within the company too, that you're getting more and more native services that are closer to cloud. But arguably AOS for the win, right? And we said it earlier. A lot of this innovation is powered by that core storage subsystem. So yes, you are really a storage company under the covers, but as a cloud company, to Jirah's point earlier, it's all about the services that you can deliver. And you're delivering the services that people need, whether that's Nutanix Enterprise AI, whether that's databases, disaster recovery as a service. Across the board, you're giving lots of choice. NKP, I heard a shout out for earlier. You've got all the high level services that a customer is looking for. Any closing remarks before we wrap it up today?
It's a good time to work for Nutanix, man. We're busy. The market is doing good for us. So, man, we're excited about the future here.
If we missed you at Ignite, sorry about that. Call your Nutanix account team, call your XenTegra account team for a personalized recap.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm just going to highlight that, Nutanix having what they have, being where they are at this moment in time is, a lot of dedication, hard work, fortuitous timing with the idea that the guys over at VMware were not doing this in the hyperconverged motion in the 1 foot in the cloud, 1 foot in the data center, 1 foot in the semi-private data center, or wherever you want to put it with this software-driven approach. I mean, it's all just kind of working out to be at the right time, the right place, the right motions, the right investments.
Yeah. And I like to point out, as we're doing lunch and learns and stuff around the country right now, there's differentiated value here. There are places Nutanix playing that those other guys aren't. VMware has been really happy in the infrastructure stack, but things like database and some of the differentiated value direct in cloud, they're not playing in that space today, and I don't see it anywhere in the roadmap right now. So there are places where you guys are ahead too. So that's also cool to see, and it's one of the reasons why we like to go to market with our Nutanix partner.
I think it's only going to get more fun. I mean, thanks to you guys, thanks to our customers. You guys have helped us get where we are, not just financially, but also really through feedback, right? Like half our product announcements come from customer direct requests and feedback. So it's all super important to us. But if we're all dusting off our crystal balls, I think in the next, I don't know, call it 12, 18, 24 months, we're comparing it now in this theme of like basically a 2-horse race. I think it's going to get absolutely silly, right? It's going to be a 10-horse race. Like everyone and their uncle is launching a hypervisor. Stand by for an announcement for a new Jirah visor or something like that. Like they're everywhere, right?
I want to buy into that one. Can I buy into that?
I don't know, no features. It just comes with barbecue sauce or something.
I just want the logo. I just want to see the logo.
The chaos I think that we're going to see in the industry around. There's so much of this fracturing ecosystem. I think that the light of like a valuable differentiated solution is only going to get brighter, right? It's going to be become even more of a standout around lots of other people. Like, we're here talking about a platform here that has roots that go back 10 to 15 years. If we're starting a new platform today in 2024 and we're like, look, it's a new hypervisor, good luck.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Well, and I also think that, man, Kubernetes and containers, the Docker containers and all that, that's going to change. Companies are going to have to embrace that. Some companies are already on that model. Some companies are resisting that a little bit, but AI is going to push that container environment, and you're already starting to see that happen.
Well, and let's go back to the flag that Jirah planted at the beginning. It needs to be more accessible. That's the thing with Kubernetes. It's inaccessible for most places in the packaged formats that it's existed to date. And so it's good to have you guys partnering to make it more accessible, because that's a very needed, valid need in the marketplace. I've tried it with 6 different platforms, hands-on, trying to figure out how do we make it happen. And there are arguably 2 to 3 that have a complete vision when it comes to making the full Kubernetes stack work, but it's incredibly different taking a team through this. It takes years of retraining, getting used to the new way and paradigms of deploying and managing the infrastructure. It's not easy. And so I never go into a customer conversation and understate how difficult it is to turn that curve.
Yeah. Like I'll give you an example. I just went through some of our NAI training, and words mean different things in different platforms. Like even cluster. Are we talking about a new traditional Nutanix cluster? Or are we talking about an NKP cluster? And so
Right.
some words in the environment can mean different things. So you're absolutely correct. But that is one thing that Nutanix does good, is it makes sense of these difficult topics and difficult configurations. And so I think that's where we're going to win. And customers are starting to really see that.
I thought you were going to say cluster meant something else.
Easy. Namespace pollution
All the
everywhere.
other guys. Well, on behalf of the XenTegra team, and thanks to Jirah and Ben joining us from Nutanix, I want to say thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the podcast. If you've got a partner out there that's not adding value to your world, give us a chance. Give us a call. And we would love to work with you and partner with you and see what we can do to add value to your world. On behalf of Andy and everyone else, I want to say thanks for joining us, giving us your time, and we will catch you on the next episode of Nutanix Weekly.